hit back at the beginning of the year, a lot of the lenders and servicers allowed their folks to basically do what's called a forbearance, which allowed them to basically it's a loan modification. There were different programs, and they're all different, and some did 3 months, some did 6 months, some have done a year. And basically, once that time frame is up and done, then it becomes, okay, are they making their payment now, or did they put it on the back end? So there's different programs that they've had over the years. And so we had a lot of good questions last week when we did this on, what does that mean to me, to my family, and to my mortgage, basically. And I know that some people have gotten out of it. I know you've got some information, some data on that, correct, Sarah?
I do, of course. So you want to go in now, or are you?
Yeah, no, I just think that for right now, for folks that are watching this, everybody needs to know that it's kind of been a weird year anyway. And so we do have a lot of unknowns at this point. There's a lot of data that shows that the foreclosures have come down, but the courts are also closed too. And then also our forbearances, some of those have been taken care of as well. So some of those will not go into foreclosure. But tell us the information that you have on forbearances.
So it's interesting because, and just like Lydia was saying, there's a lot of things happening that we don't necessarily know all the details because the courts have been closed, because so much has been happening, so much is shifting. Some of the things we do know is, yes, we've had a volatile year. Market's been interesting. It's been going crazy, but we're watching it very closely because of the things that are happening. Like when Lydia and I were talking earlier, she, has been getting requests, about 3 to 5 requests a day, what you were saying from your servicer, to do some inspections, which is always that precursor before things are moving forward. We just don't know what that forward progress is. Is it for a loan mod? Is it for, are they looking at going through that foreclosure, or whatever that process would be? Because one thing we do know is the goal of the banks and the lenders and the servicers today is very different than it was 10 years ago. 10 years ago, they came out with all these different programs about how to prevent short sale, or not prevent, how to enable short sales for these owners that really needed to get out of the property. Today, what we're seeing more is the banks are wanting to keep people in their houses. So it's a very different goal, which then will have very different outcomes. And so some of those things include where we're just, those different, sorry if you hear my dogs, include different, those different programs that Lydia was talking about, whether it's a 3, 6, 9, 12 month program. And we are seeing about, last month, about 10% of people in forbearance came out of forbearance because they had permanent loan modifications. And a lot of the things too that is giving the banks and the servicers the ability to do these different modifications is just the sheer quantity of equity we have. The Q1 this year, Q1 2020, the average American had 177,000 in equity. Now, if you look at how much we've had the appreciation this year, if you're in Phoenix, we're looking at a 16% appreciation since then. If you're in other parts of the country, national increase this year, year over year, I think through earlier September was 11%. So what we're seeing is, you're going to take these numbers and see massive increases. I got an update on my house and it said that I've increased 39% in the 4 years I've owned it. Like, that's significant. So when you know that you have this much equity, and the banks know that you have this much equity, I mean, it gives people options. And that's another thing Lydia and I were talking about. Lydia will go into that deeper in a minute. But, there's a lot of options with having that much equity. So if it's a sale that, the homeowner needs to do, they can complete a traditional sale. One thing too, where the banks, it's a different kind of scenario where when they do a foreclosure, say the borrower owes $100,000 on the house, but the house is worth $200,000. That
Right.
bank can foreclose on it, pay off their loan, but they also, any of the extra fees that are associated with a foreclosure, those will be collected too. Now there's
Right.
going to be a big pile of money, close to $100,000 left over, that is not the bank's. It is the previous homeowner that just got foreclosed on. Now, one of the things that's interesting, it is up to the bank or the lender or whomever who did the foreclosure to find that past owner and return their, say, here's your $100,000 or, kind of the money that's left over. One of the challenges is when you get foreclosed on, it's really hard to go and run out and buy a new house. So most of them are going into rentals, and rentals are not public record. So it's very hard for people to find and track down these previous owners because it's not public record. And, I know they have a process of how long they're going to be looking for that previous homeowner. And then otherwise, if they can't find that person who was foreclosed on, the money goes to the state. And, there's timelines and processes for these, but it's one of those things you want to have a conversation. Every homeowner that could potentially be looking at this needs to be aware they're entitled to the equity that they have grown over the years.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And to that, it also, with all that equity, they hopefully won't go through a foreclosure. Hopefully they will contact an agent that understands forbearances and foreclosures, and maybe put together a roadmap or a game plan as to what are we going to do? Are we going to try and pay the forbearance or renegotiate the forbearance? Are we going to try to sell the home? What does that look like too? So hopefully there won't be, my goal is to get the word out to the homeowners that you do have a lot of equity in your home, and most homeowners don't understand that. We in the industry understand that because we understand that there's low inventory right now, which means home prices are going up. I just pulled up the single family active listings in all of Maricopa County. We have 5,977 active listings at this time, which seems like a lot, but we really need to have a normal market, buyer and seller evenly amount. We need about 25,000, 30,000, and we have under 6,000.
Right. Because you got to think about, to support the population we have here, it's like, in Maricopa County, what do we have? 5.2 million people?
Yeah. And it's growing, and it is growing because all those folks coming from higher tax states are coming here. California, Washington, Oregon, New York.
Yes.
We have a lot, Chicago. We have a ton of people here from Chicago. So that, that's also contributing to the fact that we don't have a lot of inventory. And where are we gonna put these people when they come to try to buy homes?
Right. So that's why, when people are talking about, could there be a flood? What's going to happen? And it's like, well, if there is a flood, which we don't actually think will happen, if there is, it'll be absorbed really fast.
Right.
And one of the things we're talking about with the filings, so the way Arizona functions with our filings is we do notice a trustee sale, and that is the 90 days out from the auction. And I kind of pulled some numbers from June 1st through, it's like September 14th is where it was most up, is up to date with those filings, and kind of showing, and I'm going to do a screen share to show that chart. But basically, if you look at this, you see where we are. We're talking about 1, 2, 3, 4, not too many. We have, it's very volatile, and that's kind of what we wanted to show with this ugly chart is it's volatile. We don't really even have enough data to know if it's going up here or not, but it's always a 90-day window, from filing to foreclosure. And a lot of times those are delayed, like a lot of times. So it still this does not give us, the full picture of what we're looking for to see in what's going to be coming down the pipeline.
Right.
What we do know is for the last 15 weeks straight, the number of loans in forbearance has continued to drop. So we are now, it's roughly 3.5 million. This is national. Roughly 3.5 million homeowners are in forbearance. It's just under 7%. It just hit 6.93%. Remember, initially it was projected that we'd see about 30% in there. So this is definitely a benefit. We also know that about 1 million loans have come off of the forbearance since forbearance started. About 1 million loans have come out of forbearance. So there's quite a few that are, you know, no longer in that arena. And we think we know about 25% are still current, which would put us about 875,000 loans, which then means only 2.6 million are delinquent. And even though that's, again, a huge number, you got to think about, we had in the market when it crashed 10 years ago, we had 8.8 million foreclosures.
Right.
So it's just not even comparable. And, you know, we do know that we're starting to see more uptick in some of those foreclosure proceedings, but again, that was because so many things were closed for so long. In August, nationally, it was just under 10,000 had some sort of filings. Now, again, it could be whether it was a default notice, a scheduled auction, a bank repo. Here again, we have the notice of trustee sale in Arizona. So it's all different kind of scenarios, but that's still, even though we had 10,000, that was still 81% lower than we were in 2019.
And I think too, Sarah, to that, the homes today that potentially could be going through foreclosure are different than the foreclosures we had 10, 12 years ago. Back then, people knew their home was going into foreclosure, and they allowed their landscaping to go. They quit watering their plants. The inspections that I'm getting today that have been consistent for about a month now, these homes that I'm inspecting are actually in pristine condition. It doesn't even look like they're going into foreclosures.
Yeah, it's not like what we remember from 10 years ago when, you know, everything was destroyed and full kitchens were ripped out. There is, again, I think it's a difference in the mindset and the way that the consumer is approaching it, the way the banks are approaching it, the way we should be approaching it is different. And we need to be, you know, very mindful of it, because when you're in a scenario like that, again, even if they go to do a regular sale, it's going to sell really quickly because it's still a desirable property. And, you know, as Lydia just told us about, you know, the less than 6,000 single family residences, we need them.
Yes. And property values have gone up. So we're not seeing the $70,000 to $100,000 homes anymore. We're now seeing the $250,000 to $350,000 price range. I mean, just your home alone has gone up over $100,000 in equity. So
it's crazy.
It's crazy.
It's crazy, you know, but so if I've increased 39% over the last 4 years, that sounds great. Remember, 2005 increased 45% in less than 1 year. So again, we're still saying this whole 39% is a really big deal, which it is, but the timelines are very different. And again, the scenarios and the situation in which people are living in is very different.
Right.
Some of the things I do want to watch because I think is interesting, and I'm going to do another screen share, is it's the delinquency. You know, here's kind of the mortgage delinquency rates. I'm really a big fan of Matthew Gardner, who's the chief economist of Windermere, that he puts together some really interesting analysis. So if you want to see more from him, he's the one that created this chart. I gotta give him a shout out because it's such good info. But he talks about like the severity of the delinquencies, because that also gives us the map of what's going to happen next. Now, this is, you know, you see the red line is the total delinquencies, and we've actually started to drop, and it has gone down. What is interesting is the 30-day delinquencies, that's significantly down. We're down from even where we were in February by 14%. But where it is kind of, you know, this is the thing to look at it, is this kind of like yellow gold line. That is the 90 days or more delinquencies, and that is up. Now, keep in mind, this is not a huge number, but it is a number that, you know what, this is something that there's going to be something that happens. We know
Right.
that altogether, since February, we have about roughly 1.8 million more delinquencies than we had before COVID. So we know that, I mean, there's always going to be delinquencies. It's just we have 1.8 million more. And again,
Right.
with as many that are coming off of forbearance, we just don't know what that number is.
Right.
And I think that that's where, you know, we can do our best in making some assumptions and guesses, but we don't know where, you know, kind of what's going to happen tomorrow, right? Like,
right.
but that's why letting everybody know that they have options.
Yep.
That's the thing.
Options, and they most likely have equity. So let's not go down the foreclosure rabbit hole if we don't have to, because that equity is going to be eaten up by attorneys and the foreclosure process, because yes, they'll have money in the end, but they would have a whole bunch more if they didn't go into a foreclosure. So the real takeaway here is there's options, and there's most likely going to be some equity in the home for those options. So if homeowners did do a forbearance and want to get out of it, they can also not just sell their home, but they can also renegotiate their loan modification with the bank as well.
Yes, yes. And these houses are desirable. I mean, not only just the sheer limit on inventory, but just they're kept up. They're nice homes. They're livable.
They're in great areas. So yeah, there's a lot of good positive to if you have gone through that forbearance situation. And I know that there are some people that are still on furlough, and there are some that did lose their jobs still. So there's options with their home right now that they can work around. So my neighbor went on furlough way in the beginning, and then they closed out his whole division. And he was a year away from turning 65. So he wasn't quite ready to retire, but you know, it's been a challenge for him. But the homes are a great way to get out with some equity and for future purchases.
Yes. Yes.
So, and we're going to, is there any other information that you want to give us, Sarah?
That's what I wanted to share today.
Okay. And we'll definitely, obviously, as this progresses, since I work with a couple of servicing companies, I have seen an uptick in inspections. Doesn't necessarily mean that they're all going to go through foreclosure, but that's one reason why you and I wanted to put this together on a weekly basis, was to let people know, get the word out, there are options. And I think that it's just good information to go through what is going to happen in the future, because there's such misinformation out there on what's going on, what the economy has. Obviously, we're in an election year, and that makes a big difference as well. And we normally, in an election year, the housing does really well. And so, I mean, it's just been a weird year. And there's some new caveats with this year with the virus. So, and the forbearances, which weren't, you know, we really didn't have a lot of forbearances before this whole situation. So it's just good information to get out there. So we will have some more data for you next week. Sarah is the queen of data, and hopefully I will also have some additional information as well. So to that, we'll just see you next week then.
Awesome. Sounds good. And thank you so much for your time today. And anybody watching us, we appreciate you. So thanks, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks, Sarah. Take care.
Bye.